Hello, and welcome to this special edition of In the Know Women Show. The topic will be democracy and millennial engagement. Sitting in the host chair today will be previous guest Angela Jefferson. She is a local council member in our community and also a member of the League of Women Voters of Thurston County. She invited Vallie Needham Huisman, co-president of the local league, to be our guest today, and Angela created her own questions. The focus will be on how millennials are navigating their important role in supporting democracy and advocating for civic participation. We'll hear candidly about Vallie's backstory and the challenges people in her age group face today, as well as the work she does for the League. We greatly appreciate all their efforts in our community. Thank you, Vallie and Angela, for making the time for us today on In the Know Women Show.
Hello and welcome. I am Angela Jefferson, League of Women Voters member, and today I'm honored to interview Vallie Needham Huisman, current co-president for the Thurston County League of Women Voters. I've known you for a while, and it's just been an honor again and a pleasure to know you. Your wonderful personality and your youth is what brought us together today.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come down here and to just get us to talk about democracy. So in a time where democracy feels so fragile and so important, leadership matters. As a retired soldier with lived experience, also as an hourly wage worker, and we were talking about hourly wage workers earlier, in my opinion, leaders like you represent something special. So today's conversation, I would like it to be about educating people and then just teaching civics. How do you feel about that?
That feels good.
Okay, so Vallie, for those who don't know you, tell me about Vallie. What brings you to this place? Give me some background information.
Sure.
What brought you to Washington State?
Sure. Yeah. So I was born in Colorado, but my family moved around a lot until we got to Pembina, North Dakota when I was 11, which is a tiny town, literally like a half mile from Canada, or 2 miles from Canada, a half mile from Minnesota in the northeastern corner. Agriculture.
Really small.
Really 800 people.
Okay.
And at least a third of those 800 people were part of a religious cult that had their own church and wouldn't eat with anyone else. So really, really small town. I was homeschooled until my junior year, and then I went to public school, which was very, very good. And my homeschooling was a little bit more home and less schooling. And so this tiny school in Pembina, really, the teachers worked really hard to get me caught up.
Were there a lot of students in your school?
It was split between, it had 7th to 12th graders in Pembina, and there was about 84.
Okay.
And then elementary went to Nitchie, which was 16 miles away. So that's how small of a community. And I was there for 2 years, and the teachers did really good. I was very behind in both math and science, and they worked really hard to get me caught up. And then I moved to Bismarck when I was 18, which is in central North Dakota.
That's the big city, right?
It's the second biggest city in North Dakota, and it's only 70,000 people.
Okay.
Bismarck and Mandan are sister cities. They're across the river, and together I think they're about 100,000. So that's our second largest city. Still very, very agricultural, still very rural.
Farming.
Lived there, got married when I was 20, still married, same person. He's pretty great. His name is James.
I've met him.
Yep. He's kind of my favorite. I'll keep him. Although getting married at 20 was a choice, not one I would have made. I still would have married the same person, maybe waited a few years. 20 years old is not a choice I would have made now. And then we moved to Washington in 2020, right during the pandemic. Also, that was unfortunately because no one in North Dakota was talking about the pandemic, not like they were in Washington, until like I remember that I was a paraeducator at the time, and we got out, I think, for spring break on a Wednesday, and we were supposed to go back on a Monday. and no one was talking about COVID, and we never went back on Monday. And we had already, like, my husband was already treating his replacement. Mm-hmm. We had already put notice in on our apartment, so we moved during the pandemic. And it was rough.
It was rough.
It was rough. Yep.
So now, tell me, what brought you into the league? Why the league, and why co-president? Because you are one of the youngest, members of the league. So tell me your decision-making on that.
Yeah, so I had actually heard of the League of Women Voters a little bit in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. So when my husband and I became politically active around 2015, 2016, we were doing partisan work. And there were just, little party in a little state. And even there was just stuff that made me uncomfortable, like tribalism and just, there were some things that I was like, And so one of my last projects in North Dakota was I worked for a nonpartisan ballot initiative that put an ethics commission above our legislature. Mm-hmm. And that was my first experience with nonpartisan work. And so when we moved to Washington, I told my husband, I was like, I don't want to do any partisan work. I don't, and we had kind of like worked a little bit, we had approached the league, but the league in Bismarck told us that because we were doing partisan work, they couldn't work with us. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So when we moved here, I actually knew exactly that I was going to go straight to the league because I was like, I don't want to do partisan work.
But I still want to be involved.
I'm a person where like I have to be involved. I can't just stay home and vote a couple times a year. I just couldn't do that. So So I knew of the league, and I kind of I just had one track mind when I moved here. I was like, because I was really burned out by North Dakota politics. And so, I took a year and a half, and then I was like, okay, the league we go.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
And thank you for stepping up. Now, what brings you joy when it comes to this work? Tell me a little bit more about the league. I heard that we know that they're nonpartisan, so give me some background information about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't, or that nonpartisan may have like a few different definitions depending on who's. So the league defines it as we just simply do not endorse or oppose any parties or candidates, but we absolutely do take positions on issues. And so that's the issues is what gets me, because the issues are what, especially locally, like the more local we go, the more interested I am. Like once we start talking, like state is fine. Like I don't mind state, but once we start going higher than that, I'm just like, no, it's not my thing. It's too much noise. And so I really like to bring it local, and the more local it is, the more passionate I am about it.
Can you give me an example of something local that you are involved with, we are involved with, as the League of Thurston County?
Yep. So my favorite part of the league is the candidate forums, and I am the candidate forum chair. And candidate forums, they're not a debate. It's more like a job interview where we invite all of the candidates for a specific position or district, and we bring them. And Angela, you've been involved in ours.
Yes.
And we bring them together and we ask them all the same questions, and they have the same amount of time to answer them. And I love that. It's actually really interesting. The first year that I took over, and as I'm meeting these candidates, because we're communicating over email, and as I'm meeting them, I'm realizing I don't even know what party these candidates are associated with, because when I gather all the candidates' information from the Secretary of State's website, it's not one of my slots that I fill in, because it's irrelevant to the league. And so it's just really interesting to, like, in a time when the polarization is so big, and so just to be in a political space and like, if there's candidates that, like, they're running again and I've worked with them before, then yeah, I know. But if there's new candidates, I have no idea whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or independent. And being in that space where you don't have those labels is just, that's why I'm able to continue to be politically active in my community.
I see what you mean. Just it's not partisan, it's not political. You're
Yeah.
just giving people a platform so they
Yeah.
can let the community know, hey, this is me. This is
Yeah.
what I believe in, and
Yeah.
this is what you should support. So
And I don't approach because I don't know and I deliberately don't seek out that information. Like, I don't have any preconceived notions about these candidates when I meet them for the first time, because they're like a blank space. I don't look at their campaign website. I don't look at their social media. To me, they're, before I meet them face to face, they're a name that I pull off the Secretary of State's website. And it really just allows me to have like good organic interactions with these candidates.
thank you for that, Vallie. So now, as a woman in leadership, in your role, have you ever walked into a room and felt underestimated, undervalued, something, feeling like I don't belong here, and this is not my space? How have you overcome that? What did you do?
Yeah, I actually don't experience that much, like, that feeling based on gender now, because I actually work in a lot of like women-dominated spaces.
Okay.
That was definitely something, when I was growing up, in a rural area. My dad was a pastor. I grew up in religious, like very conservative religious areas, and yes, I absolutely, women were taught that we don't take up space, and we don't, we have to submit to the men around us. But, since coming to Washington and since joining the league, so much of my work is in female-dominated areas.
Okay.
I think the difficulty for me actually is more age than what it is gender. Because, I'm 31, and the league is an organization that, a lot of league folks are older and retired. And so oftentimes, and it's not like the league is really wants young people.
Yes.
It's
we do.
more, sometimes it's a mental thing on my end, where I'm like, we have so many amazing women in this room who have worked their entire careers in specific areas, and I just have to remind myself that, like, I am qualified to be here. There's a reason why I'm here. My experience is important and vital to this conversation.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, sometimes it's a mental thing.
Right. So you're just like, I belong.
Yeah, like pep talks in
That's
the
right.
car of like, I am here.
That's right.
I have the right to exist in this space,
Right.
and if people don't give me the space, then I'm going to claim it.
There you
'Cause,
go. There you
it's
go.
it's
I like
my
that.
space as much as it is other
Right.
people's.
I might be younger, but I have a voice, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to
Yep.
use that voice.
For sure.
So let's talk about your youth. And when I say youth, I mean young people, not necessarily college age or high school people, but just youth in general. So many young people or youth feel disconnected from politics. What would you say to a student or a young person who believe that, I'm just one person. My vote or voice doesn't matter?
Yeah. This obviously comes up a lot, and I think a lot of the discourse around voting is really around national elections, and that bothers me, because it's not that national elections are important, because they are, but I think that people don't. When we think about voting, we're not thinking about the local elections. When it comes to, your landlord raising your rents, or if you are a homeowner, your property taxes, or where your sewage is going, that's not being decided by Congress. That's being decided by your local community. And so the reality is that when it comes to national elections, we have the Electoral College. We do not have direct democracy in our country. And living, North Dakota is a red state, and it has gone red for 20 years. Washington is a blue state. It's gone blue for I don't know how much, because I'm not as familiar with Washington history. But with the Electoral College, unless you live in a swing state or a swing county, that's true to a certain, it is. And we don't like to admit it, but I think the most common response that people get, well, if everyone who thought that voted, it would change. Well, that doesn't help people because that's not. And so I bring it locally. And, Angela, you shared these questions with me beforehand. And so I actually did some research into Thurston County. And I love digging into data. Like, this is my thing. And so in November 2025, our last election, I mean, we had a special election, but the last general election, there was about 200, and I'm not going to get these numbers exactly, but there was about 270,000 registered voters here in Thurston County. Not eligible voters. Those are just the ones who have registered. The amount of ballots that came back was about 85,000. So 40% of Thurston County registered voters, not eligible voters, registered voters voted, which means 60% of ballots went into the mail, ended up on someone's counter or someone's table, and then they were never returned. And there were two really close races in here in Thurston County. One of them was one that the entire county voted on, which was Port of Olympia, where one of the positions was decided by 190 votes.
Yeah, and I remember it going back and forth for about a week and a half.
And if you're a person who keeps an eye on when they're tallying ballots, because it takes them about a week or so, you can see it, that it's going back and forth. And the other one was in Tumwater, one of the school districts, was decided by about 210
school board member.
Yeah, school board. And so when people say my vote doesn't matter, I'm like, oh, friend, let's talk. Because
it absolutely does.
Temporarily forget about Congress, temporarily forget about the president. Those are important, but let's talk local. And that's where, how many people would have to get one or two friends to vote to beat that 190?
Yeah.
So
it does matter.
It really, really matters.
Bottom line. Your vote matters, right?
And I think the other thing too, and I think a lot of people, when I talk to people about voting, there's a lot of misunderstandings about how a ballot works. So when you have your ballot in front of you, you don't have to vote in every single race. I think, if you're educated and if you're sure, absolutely fill out but you don't have to. And so, when I was in North Dakota, I worked as an election judge. And we had a 13-hour shift where we could not leave the building because we voted on location in North Dakota. And there would be people who would think that they had to vote for every single race or else their ballot was eliminated.
Counted.
And that's not true. I do absolutely encourage people to be, educated enough to vote in every single race. But, if there's only one candidate, too.
Yeah, right. And don't write in Mickey Mouse or Donald
Duck.
There's a lot of people who
Because as an election judge in North Dakota, I found out that you have to, and I mean, it makes sense because write-in votes still count. And so we had to write in every name that someone wrote in, and it actually takes a lot of time.
Yes.
And so, unless it's a pretty serious write-in candidate, Mickey
does.
Mouse is not a serious write-in candidate.
I know, right? Let's move on to misconceptions, because there's a misconception, people my age, maybe a little bit older, that we have about your generation. What's one of those or two of those misconceptions that you wish would just go away or is just not correct?
Yeah. I was born in 95, so depending on what website you look at, the end of millennials is either 95 or 96. And the one that we get and the one that everyone has heard is that we're lazy and we're entitled. And we're not. In general, we're just not. I think.
Tell me why. Because that perception is out there. You're spoiled.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about that.
I think there's two things. I think one thing is that I think a lot of us are living in crisis mode. I was telling my husband, I've worked in schools, so I don't know how many people are familiar with this color chart that you use with kiddos. If you're green, you're happy, you're ready to learn, you're not stressed, you're having a good time, and then that gradient kind of goes from green to red, and red is I'm overstimulated, I need a break, my brain is in crisis mode, I'm in fight or flight. And I was telling my husband, I was like, since COVID, I don't think I've been out, my baseline is light yellow. That's my baseline. That's when I'm just sitting on the couch because there's no economic stability. There's, the joke now between millennials, is we're tired of living through unprecedented times. Like, please. And then, like, when I was still a teenager, the joke was like, how many end of the worlds have we lived through? How many times, like, we got to the end of the mine. And it's just like, when your baseline is like yellow, you're not even green, it's yellow. And like, and I think that older folks don't understand that, like, trying to find the emotional energy to care about voting, to care about democracy, when the immediate thing is, do I have money to put gas in my car to get to work, or can I buy groceries, or do I need to go find the food bank? I mean, it is like, that is the day-to-day reality for
survival.
It's survival. And Angela, I was telling you before that my husband works for the state, and before taxes, he's making $100,000 a year, and we have had that question in the last year of, like, are we going to eat, or are we going to fill up our gas tank? And, like, we shouldn't be having that question. Like, we should be comfortable at 100,000. We're like, we take home like maybe 80, and like, if it is bad for us, and we're not out gallivanting across the country. We don't. I boycott Amazon. I try not to buy new things because I get an unhealthy amount of guilt about the environment, and so I am not, like, we're not out. Like, we go to
partying, spending,
probably the most that we spend is, like, we eat out, but even then, not very often, because it's just getting too expensive. And so if it's bad for us, with my husband having a state job, what in the world is it like for people who are working minimum wage jobs or 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs? And we don't have kids. That's the other thing. Like, our cats cost us about $200 a month between food and litter. Yeah. And, like, the empathy I have, like, if we're struggling, the empathy I have for other people who have children or have to work, like, I don't even work. And that's the thing. Like, my work is the League of Women Voters. Yeah. And so, we're not a family that has to work 3 or 4 jobs. And we and we would struggle less if I worked. But I also think the League of Women Voters is worth my time, and I may not be being paid for it, but it is absolutely worth my time.
Now I see where that I'm always in crisis and I'm always in that red zone. Yeah. Because if you look at the fact that mortgages 20 or 30 years ago, we're talking, 3% interest rate. Yep. $300,000, $400,000 for homes. Yeah. Now you're not going to find a home in Thurston County for less than $450,000.
We were lucky because we got, well, first of all, we came up with, the down payment for our house from a lot of inheritance money, which a lot of people don't have, especially like folks of color. Like, historically, they don't get inheritance because, they didn't work for pay for a long time. So, A, we had inheritance that put us above, and B, like, we got in 2021 right before everything started skyrocketing. Yeah. And it's actually the property taxes that really, like, because we locked in a mortgage at 3.5%, which is good, but our property taxes are just, like, every year. Like, I thought, so this is what people don't tell you, right? Because when you're buying a house, you don't have a manual on how to buy a house. And so what I thought we not only locked in an interest rate, but I thought we also locked in a mortgage payment. That's not true. No. Our mortgage has gone up by approximately $100 every year. So we were starting at, like, I think we started out at like $2,200 a month, and now we're up to $25. And I just got an email that we're going up to $26. You're going up. And so, like, one of my husband's paychecks is almost entirely mortgage. And so that we have to figure out. So, like, one paycheck, we have some flexibility. One paycheck, it's like almost all of this is mortgage. Where's food and gas coming from?
Yeah. So that misconception.
Yeah, we're not lazy. We're not entitled. We are working our butts off, to be honest. Like
that is BS right there. Yeah. 2-3 jobs. Yeah. $100,000 doesn't go far these days. Especially when you have, a mortgage or average rent is $3,500-$3,800 a month. And
my husband and I also, like, we have one car that's paid off. So, like, we are ahead of other people, but we're still struggling. And it's rough. And I don't think older folks really understand that.
I don't either.
No.
I don't either. And I really get it from talking to you today. You know, I get it when I look in your eyes. I'm just like, you know what? She makes sense. Because youth are different today than they were. You know, they have to deal with social media. They have to deal with being perfect. And here we go with, you know, the mental health of youth. Because of what they're dealing with today. You know, technology
it is
today,
rough.
right? And
it is rough. The internet is rough.
Yeah.
You know, the millennials kind of got a little bit lucky because we were there in that 5 years where the internet was actually cool. And there wasn't ads everywhere. There wasn't AI. It was just kind of this cool place where you could actually Google a question and get an actual answer. And, like, we did kind of have information, like, the world's information at our fingertips. And now it's just it's completely
upside
different.
Down. Right.
It's completely different.
World.
And it's almost not even useful anymore.
Right.
So,
right. So,
you know,
thank
yay,
you for
5
that.
years. That 5 years, it was a great time.
Thank
and
you
we
for-
didn't even know what we had when we had it.
Yeah. You know, that's refreshing to know. So, okay. So, how can our nonprofit organization, like the League, better meet people where they are, both online and in real life? What kind of changes do you think we can make? What kind of changes have you made?
Yeah, that's actually my talking about the internet like segues me right into this answer because, you know, we hear all the time in the nonprofit world or any world that like we have to get people through online. We have to get, and I don't think that's necessarily wrong. But the way that capitalism has just these big companies are manipulating the things that we see, like on Facebook, for instance, if you don't like I got off of Facebook, but right before I got off of Facebook, just as Facebook started turning into what it,
Mega land.
Yeah,
right.
like, you know, I went and I got out of every group. I unliked every single page because I wanted to see how many of my friends' actual posts I was seeing. And even after getting out of every group, unliking every page, every like three, like you would have like 3 posts of your friends and then you would have an ad.
Like a commercial.
Yeah. And,
right.
and it's like, and now like, unless you go to the League of Women Voters of Thurston County's Facebook page fairly often, the algorithm might not even show, even if you're following it.
Yeah.
If you just like the page, but you're not actually interacting with the post, like liking the post or commenting on the post, then the algorithm might not even show it to you.
Yeah,
so I'm kind of wondering if we should start pushing against, and that's not even factoring AI or bots. I'm wondering if like this strategy actually needs to move more offline. And like, you know, one thing I would love to see the League do, and we are having conversations about this, and I've been talking about this since I joined the League, that we need an evening event that does not come with the expectation of spending money. Because right now our main weekly meeting or social time is Tuesdays at 10.
So like a potluck.
At a restaurant. Yeah, like a potluck or something, because like not only does it need to be like more in the evening, which is a more accessible time, but also like, you know, I've talked to the older folks being like, even if you tell someone we're meeting at a restaurant, but you don't have to buy anything because other people are, the social expectations to still spend money is still there. Like even, you know, we go to River's Edge and Tumwater and they're great and they're great. And on Tuesday mornings, almost everyone buys food. So even I, like, you know, I go almost every week. And so I know intellectually that I don't have to spend money because a lot of other people are spending money. But that social pressure is still
stigma,
there.
right.
And so, you know, and that's something that we're talking about. And you know, I want to see that materialize in the next year.
Inclusion.
But I think the other thing, you know, our voter services has been out on the college campuses, and they've been doing a really good job. And I just want to get more to the college campuses, more in the high schools, and also, like, just community places. Like, you know, my husband and I are really into board games. Like, board games have become a major thing in the last 10 years. And you know, we have local board game stores that, like, the League could be going into these, you know, and tabling on a Saturday when everyone's playing Magic. Or, you know, if you know, I think that's where we could really go and say, hey, you know,
voices.
You know, and I
Right.
can bring my husband along who knows magic.
Yes.
I've tried to learn magic, and it's just I just can't do it. But like, you know, and so you know,
And those younger parents are there along
bring
with the
bring and
kids.
you know we
Right.
can have a conversation about magic and democracy all at the same time. Like we're good at that. So that's what I would like to see the league start doing.
I like that. Great ideas. Thank you, Vallie. Now, more on youth. How can you tell today's youth? What can you tell them on how they can get involved right now? Things that they can do.
You know, I'm going to go back a little bit to the nonpartisanship that we were talking about because I think especially like you know, in the last 10 years, like my first presidential election that I was eligible to vote in
Tell me
was
about it.
2016.
Okay.
2016 was I was 21, I think. And so intellectually I know that our politics have not always been polarized. So intellectually I know that.
Yeah.
But the reality is that that's all we've seen for the last 10 years.
They haven't been as mean. We've been polarized.
Yeah, yes.
Right,
yeah,
but we haven't been as mean and
it's
as
just
nasty.
so unkind.
Yes.
And it's so and I think that a lot of people are feeling really frustrated with this two-party system. And like that's why I'm so like I talk about nonpartisanship all the time of like if you want to get out of talking about whether or not Democrats are being effective enough or whether or not what Republicans are doing, just don't get out of those spaces
And join the league.
and join the league or like you know the NAACP is even
Yes.
older than the league and they're
Yes.
nonpartisan and you know so I think more and more people are just done with the two parties and like I think some of our apathy, you know, people my age, you know, and maybe even people younger, is that we are looking at these people and we're like, you don't even care about representing us.
And this is why I'm stressed all the time.
Yeah,
This is why I'm angry all the time.
do you even understand that we are literally in crisis mode
Yeah.
all the time? And I think that the politicians that we have, like on a national level, that are getting more attention, are the younger ones who are like, you know, we have worked hourly wages. Like how many of the older Congress folks have actually worked a wage job where you are
Walked a
getting
mile in my
paid
shoes,
minimum
right?
wage and like so I think to go back to your question, what can you do today? I mean, obviously vote is something you're going to hear all the time, but with organizations like the League and other local nonprofits, you know, I work with volunteers. Like I'm a volunteer, and yes, I give 20, 30 hours a week with the League. However, I am the exception. I have volunteers that come in when I do candidate forums. I'm like, I need you for an hour, for one day, an hour, and like. You know, so there are small things that you can do, whether it's because some people don't like being in front of the mic and they want to be in the background. I have places for you. We have places for you. Some people are more extroverted and absolutely want to be going out and talking to people. We have places for you. Our voter services does shifts, you know, where you can go out and be in the community for 2 hours on one day.
Okay.
And so, you know, that gives you an opportunity where it's a little commitment, and it still can be a little bit stressful and a little bit overwhelming because we have a lot of things coming at us, but like 1 hour for one day.
Right.
Yeah.
And everyone can join the league.
Anyone,
The
yeah.
league is not just for women.
Yes. So so this is the Legal Women Voters. That name is a historical name, and I mean there's a lot of conversations within the league about whether or not we should. You know, I think they first tried to change it in 1976, where they tried to drop the women. But here in Thurston County, especially, we have just, you know, we actually at one of our membership meetings we had, I was telling you this, we had someone be like, "We need more men," which is not typically, but like, you know, not only is the league not just for women, but like, you know. We're open to trans folks. We're open to non-binary folks.
Right.
You know,
Everyone is welcome.
everyone
Literally,
is welcome. You know, we as a league, we are really working hard to not just say that we're inclusive or that we're diverse, because you know, DEI, sometimes it's really easy for diversity, equity, inclusion to become like a buzzword or like just a thing that like fades into the background because you hear it so much and there's so much argument about it. But like we recognize that like the more perspectives we have, the better we are. And another area that I would like to see the league expand that I absolutely see through the DEI lens is in the rural areas in Thurston County. Because we have Lacey, Tumwater, Olympia. We're good. I mean, there's still a lot we can do. But Rainier and Yelm and Rochester, it's like crickets. And so, like, we want – and there's young folks in those rural areas because, like, at this point, like, living in the cities is becoming untenable. And so, there's just a lot of different demographics and people that we are aware that we're missing. But we need more help. We need more people power.
Right.
Yep.
We need some of those rural voters.
We need the rural voters. We need the young people who have energy. Like one of our new members is 32 years old, and I went to her and I was like, okay, we're best friends. Woo! So yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay. I like that. No, I wanted to talk about the cost of joining the league because we have memberships, but we have scholarships too.
We do.
So we don't want cost factor to be an issue. You will be accepted into the league.
Yeah, and to bring it personal, like previous years, we've moved to a pay-as-you-can model where it's like a $20 minimum. And in previous years, my husband and I were able to pay like the $75 that used to be, or it used to be $100 per household. And we were able to pay that. This year, we weren't. And we actually had to pay on 2 separate paychecks because as co-president, we couldn't really let my membership lapse. And so we paid $20, I think, for me this year. And then I think the next paycheck, we paid $20 for my husband this year. And so, like, and so we had to separate by paychecks because that's how we have to view the world. But we absolutely do not want the price to be a barrier. So we do have memberships available, like scholarships. And, one of the reasons why we need more diverse people and people who may not have the socioeconomic privilege that other people have is because someone mentioned to us, maybe you don't – sometimes when you approach people and you say, hey, there's a scholarship, that can be a little embarrassing. And, like, not – it can feel demeaning. It shouldn't be demeaning, but it can feel like – demeaning. And so
going to the restaurant, you were saying. And you can still come and we'll have free food. Well, not necessarily. Right.
Yeah. And so, like, we have scholarships available. And, I'm really hoping, like, with the new communications chair, I'm really hoping that we can get to a more accessible software because I don't think our software – because right now our software doesn't really allow us to let someone join for free, even though, because it doesn't really work on the back end. And so we have to kind of manipulate a little bit. And so right now it is, if you send an email to the membership chair, which the email is on our website, then the membership chair will work with you personally and privately. And that information isn't given to the board. It's not like as a board member, I don't know how much money people have paid. So that we know how much in total is coming from dues, but it's not broken down by name. So that information is confidential. So that is, and I'm glad you brought that up because, finance is hard.
It's not just hard because, like you said, $100,000 a year in Thurston County, isn't $100,000 a year job 20 years ago. It's different today.
It's so different.
It's different today because if you were making $100,000 a year, when I was your age, you were just like, I'm driving this, you
can afford those 2 big.
There you go. But it's different today.
My husband and I are trying to figure out if we can even go back to North Dakota because that's where we're from, and my nibblings are getting older, and I'm like, I don't even know if we can take 2 weeks to drive, not fly, to drive to North Dakota
with the price of gas.
With the price of gas,
hotel.
and I'm just like, we should be able to go see our family for 2 weeks and like we shouldn't even have to talk about it. It should just be available to us. And
so
it's frustrating that it's not.
Yeah. So dues matter,
Dues matter,
and
but
we get
people's time
Yeah.
also, because when you're involved in political work, yes, money is always going to be an issue, but volunteers.
Yes.
Volunteers are like
That's
getting people to be able to like come and like, I think there's two different types of people that a nonprofit needs. And sometimes you get them in the same person, but it's people who have money and then people who have time. And sometimes you get people who have both time and money. I'm a person where I have more time than money, you know, and I think a lot of younger folks may have, you know, they might have a little bit of money, they might have a little bit of time, or they might have time.
Yeah, and that time is valuable.
So valuable.
That time is valuable to the organization.
It can literally be translated to money if we're looking at the right reports.
Yes.
Like,
thank you.
Time is literally money.
Time is money.
Yeah.
I like that. So I have a closing question for you, Vallie. If you could paint a picture of what democracy in Thurston County could look like 5 or 10 years from now, powered by engaged young leaders that we're talking about, what would that future look like?
I think two things. I think one thing is proportional representation. So, you know, and that goes into conversations about maybe changing how we're voting, like maybe instead of doing first past the post, which is how we vote now, you know, maybe doing something like ranked choice voting or approval voting. I think that would be one thing I would like to see in the next 10 years. The other thing is, like I said, 40% of people who are registered, which again is not eligible voters, that's how many ballots came back. So there's so many ballots that are in someone's mailbox that's on their counter that doesn't get back to the auditor to be counted. And Washington makes it so easy to vote here compared to North Dakota. I mean, North Dakota, to even see who's on your ballot before the day you go in to vote is like, you have to like find out, you have to type in your address and get a copy of like a mail-in, see a digital copy of a mail-in ballot for you to even see who's on your ballot. Washington, you get a voter pamphlet in your mail. And I think a lot of people in Washington don't understand how lucky you are, because in North Dakota, you got nothing. And you might have candidates who don't even have a campaign page. And so you get a voter pamphlet in the mail,
you know about
that at least gives you the name of the candidates and a little blurb about them. And so and we can vote on our kitchen table, and we still get stickers. That's the thing. We still get stickers. I love the stickers. But I think for us to get that number up 40%, and the number is statistically lower in not presidential years. And so that number will probably be up in 2 years. Yep, in 2 years. Yeah. But still 40%.
Yeah. So it sounds like for us, that would be more voter services outreach. Maybe getting in these high schools and registering these kids.
Yep. So, because in Washington, you can pre-register at age 16. So that means that when you're 18 and you have a bunch of stuff coming at you because you're just turning 18 and you're all of a sudden a legal adult, you're already, like, if you pre-register when you're 16 or 17, your first ballot will just arrive when you're eligible, and you don't even have to worry about it.
Right.
And so that's one thing.
Right.
Our voter services has really focused on registering voters, and there's nothing wrong, of course, with registering voters. But I would really like us to see that transition from not only focusing on registering voters, but getting registered voters to fill out their ballot and to get it into a ballot box.
Right.
And, you know, and that's
more
again,
education
that requires people power and younger people to, like, you know, we need to be talking to our friends. We need to be having voter parties at our house. And like, you know, it's not about dictating to people how they vote. It's about, you know, and maybe you can even have those privacy setups like they have in schools, right? Where you have this thing where, like, you can still keep your vote private if you want to, but, like, just have a bunch of people come over and get some drinks and buy some chips and fill out your ballots together, you know? And to get that 40% up, and I don't know
Right.
what a realistic number is in 10 years. Like in an ideal world, we're way up there, 80, 90%. I don't know, but 40%.
That's too low.
Too low. Too low.
That's too
40% of Thurston County
Yeah.
is making all the decisions for 100% of
Yeah.
us.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Come on.
So
Come
when
on.
those-
Democracy can do better.
Right.
We can do better.
Right. And like we said, it's at the local level.
Yep.
Where policies are passed.
Yep.
And taxes are increased.
Yep.
It's at the local level.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, it is.
Do you have any closing remarks for me, Vallie? Any closing remarks for our audience today while we close this out?
You know, I know that you wanted me to talk about what brings me joy, and we didn't quite get there. And, you know, my husband and I, we play a lot of Minecraft.
Okay.
So we play a lot of Minecraft. I've been crocheting window curtains because I haven't liked any of the options. And plus, like, I can't trust anything. I can't buy anything online anymore because at this point, it doesn't matter how much research you get. The quality is probably going to be awful.
Yeah.
So I didn't like any of the colors or patterns. And so I'm crocheting myself some curtains. I've been binging TV.
Okay.
I've been watching the old Western Bonanza, actually, which
Yep.
I watched a lot as a kid,
Yep.
which is so interesting to watch now as an adult and, like, seeing it both through the lens of, like, 1960s America and also through, like, the 21st lens of, like, gender, race, and class. It's like some episodes did not age well,
Yeah.
but there's some episodes I'm like, this was on television in 1960.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like there's an episode where they're actually talking about, like, institutionalized racism and about how you as an individual have to look inside your soul, you know, to dig out that prejudice. And you know, the context is like this school teacher was discriminating against students of colors. And 1960s, you know, this main white male character is saying you have to dig that. It's not enough to say that you're just not prejudiced. You have to dig that prejudice out of your soul. And so it's been really interesting.
Yeah. Just
But
go back.
there's also some episodes that
Problematic.
I just can't finish because I'm
It's
like,
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
I remember that.
Yep.
Bonanza and the Big Valley also.
yeah,
was
I just started watching the
staples.
first episode of The Big Valley, and I've
Yes.
actually thought about going back to Gunsmoke,
Yeah,
too.
favorites. Just
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
just
I never
love
watched those two when I was
westerns.
little, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And with that said, I think that concludes our interview.
Yeah, you know, I just want to thank you, Angela, for your time and for your questions and for sending them to me beforehand. And also Darlene Atkins for In the Know Women's Show. This is my first experience, and it's been really positive.
Thank you so much for
Thank
hanging out with me
you.
today.
Thank you so much.
Co-president.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Welcome. I am Angela Jefferson, council member for the city of Tumwater. And what brought me to the show previously was I was interviewed. Darlene invited me for the In the Know Women's Show created by Darlene Atkins. And I was so impressed with her work and her tenacity that she called me about a week ago. She was like, Angela, I need you. So I was just like, Darlene, I got you. So here we are today.
And